Did we start? Oh, we're recording. Yeah. So we got to figure out how to intro this too.
This is the worst podcast.
And I like it.
If you got this
This is
far, you
the
should have watched this podcast.
worst podcast ever.
This is one of my best friends, Anton Bernstein, founder of Pockets World.
A world in your pocket.
Yeah. He's been in tech for a really long time. Anything else you want to add? He lives in Texas.
I think you pretty much covered it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're starting a podcast. We're giving it a shot.
We're giving it a shot.
We're giving it a shot. Yes, I'm Anton. I have been in tech for a long time. I run a gaming company called Pocket World. It's been doing that for like 12, 13 years. And I do live in Texas. I live in Austin. And yeah, I guess what we want to talk about, what I'd love to talk about to kick off this podcast is the creative journey, the creative process.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like recording this podcast, us right now, is the creative process. And it's like really ugly and really messy and really rough, which I think would be the definition of the creative process for a long, long time.
Right. Okay. Yeah, say more about that. Well, I'm curious why you want to talk about the creative process in general, because this is a topic you brought up. By the way, I'm Josh. Was in tech, founded an instant coffee company, worked at Google as a product manager, ran a Burning Man camp, quit tech to become an artist and figure out my creative process, and build immersive experiences. And you talk about creativity a lot, the creative process. Why do you want to talk about this topic? What interests you about it?
Well, I find it really interesting, especially in contrast to, I think creativity is, I guess, useful in so many different areas of the world. We come from the world of tech, and in tech, creativity is so important to innovate, to build something new. In the world of art, which is the world that you're entering and building up in, obviously creativity is, everything or a lot. And I think creativity is often, ill-defined. It's a little bit hard to define what creativity is. It's one of those, like, it's kind of is it a process? Is it the outcome of a process? Is it something that you produce? This thing was creative? Or is it the way that you do things? This kind of creative energy. I don't know. I think there's just a lot of, at least for me, I've been learning a lot about what creativity means. I used to think that I wasn't a creative person. Like I didn't identify with creativity. And I guess over time, I've realized that, first of all, creativity comes in so many different shapes and sizes. And I've realized that I am, in fact, creative in my own way. And yeah, like these days at my company, I run a gaming company. We spend a lot of time on trying to innovate, on trying to be creative, on trying to do something different. And as we do it for the longest time, it feels so brutal. Like it feels like we're not being creative. Yeah, and I can talk more about that, but Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just a really like aspirational thing, a really beautiful thing, a really hard to define thing. And so I've been thinking a lot about it. And actually recently reading the book Creativity Inc. and a bunch of other books around creativity. Actually, the book I'm reading right now is about the creation of Prince of Persia. Um, actually, the book might even be called Prince of Persia. I don't remember what the book is called, even though I'm reading it. Actually, I can tell you what it's called. But yeah. Anyway, that's like my rambly answer or non-answer about why creativity is interesting to me. Why is it interesting to you?
It's funny as you were talking. So growing up, my dad would all like my whole life, he would really put a premium on being creative. He would always be like, it's important to be creative. He would talk about his creativity. He would talk about practices he's put in place to like maintain his creativity. And I think that's sort of like his optimal goal. Um, I think that, yeah, similarly to you, I never thought I never thought of myself as creative. I think that, I've, as I've come to sort of like understand myself more in, ways I contributed, I think I'm really incredibly creative in sort of like, it's almost like bounded problems, like, we have a system, a game, a company where there's like rules, whether it's like how to get promoted or how to move a metric or how to, you know, um, like how to improve when I was making instant coffee, how to figure out a new way to make instant coffee. Once we already understand how instant coffee works, then I just, I'm incredibly creative in that way. And then now I'm in the space of, it feels like an unbounded creative problem. Like I can make anything. Um, and, and, uh, and I'm struggling with that. That's a growth edge. Where, like, um, the other day we're buying like, uh, potion bottles I'm trying to make an immersive tavern and I'm buying potion bottles um, and going with, Zapper, my brother-in-law, and he's just like incredibly good at, perceiving, like we're in the store and like, ooh, that would be good. That would be good. That would be good for this thing. And like my brain has a really hard time with that form of creativity. And I don't know exactly what the difference, I don't know how I would define that, but, uh, um, and so, yeah, I think I've been pushing myself to figure out how to fit in that and be okay with that.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this topic as you were talking about it, this idea of bounded and unbounded creativity. And I think what the unbounded part, what I think is really hard about it, at least for me, I don't know if this is true for you, but for me, it requires so much reflection, like self-reflection and self-awareness and looking inside because I have to create my own boundaries. If there's like this big unbounded space, unbounded problem, and I'm expected to be creative in it, the highest level concept, in the world of business or tech or whatever is like, what company do I start? And then you have this like big unbounded problem. And then you've got to try to create boundaries so that you can operate within those boundaries. I find it requires a ton of reflection and a ton of like self-understanding for me to make those boundaries, which can be really hard when I guess I've kind of grown up constantly moving forward, constantly solving problems within certain boundaries, whether it's at school or at work or whatever. And I've been spending a lot of my time, not a lot, but I've been trying to dedicate more and more time to reflection, to journaling, to try to understand what are my boundaries, what are my values. I just listened to this really awesome speech by this guy, General McChrystal, about character. He wrote a book on character. And he kind of defined character as conviction times values. Conviction times discipline. So your convictions and your discipline to honor those convictions over time and through stress and through fear and all those other things.
Yeah.
But that first step, like, what are your convictions, requires so much self-reflection. And those convictions even create some boundaries for what you want to be creative in, or where you want to spend your time. Those convictions are your values, they're your principles, they're your morals, whatever, all those things. And so, yeah, I guess all I'm saying is, like, the reflection for me is that unbounded problem is almost like a self-reflection problem, because it's like, how do I create those boundaries? I need to reflect, which means I need to pause, which means I need to think deep inside myself. And that's actually one thing I saw your dad do really well when we were in Hawaii. Josh and I went on this like awesome trip to Hawaii with his dad, just the three of us, boys trip. And I just saw your dad he would just sit there for hours, like writing notes, reflecting, looking deep within himself.
Yeah.
And I have so much admiration for that, especially in today's, like, you just pick up your phone and browse TikTok or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to quit simple creative practices, his big thing has always just literally been like, have alone time in your head as much as possible.
Incredible.
With no distractions.
Terrifying,
yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it's funny, like as you're saying this, I'm looking at, because like I basically do the same thing to create bounds. So like I'm making art, but I created a spec for my art that I put on the wall. Should I put it on camera?
Yeah.
And if you can see this.
It's blurry for me, but I think when the thing goes, it won't be blurry.
So this is like a draft name, but I'm calling the immersive experience temporarily Questicles.
Love it.
But I think it's going to be called Cozy Dragon. And yeah, I set OKRs for my thing, which is really dorky that I would do that for an art project in the morning. Key result, design vision, have a work plan. Room 1 feels like a different place. Room 2 feels like a different place. There are game details. Here's a budget. Here's the why I'm doing this. And then below this are like, sort of like how I would, like, what components, so I'm like, you need music in a DJ, and you need like a building, like what are different things that I need. And I don't know. Do you really think that you really need, because, I've seen other people in my life, like our mutual friend DB, where I feel like he can just be creative without a structure, without boxes.
Yeah. Well, I was like thinking about this for us when we've been making our games. And I guess before our process, and I would say it resulted in a lot of stuff that wasn't all that innovative. It was a little bit more copycat, and it was more the structure where, hey, before anything, we kind of define what we're going to build, and then we go and build it, and then we ship it, and that's kind of it. And like that definition process was like writing a spec and all those other things. And I found that the end result didn't feel innovative, and it also didn't feel super delightful. And then more recently, over the last 6 months, we've kind of embraced a much messier process, which is to say, hey, we have some vision for what a game might be, and it's fairly high level, this vision. It starts off with like a rough spec, and then as quickly as possible, we get it to a place where we can get it into our hands. And then there's this like really messy, really scary process where we have a small team, like 3-4 people, and we meet every day. We make progress in those 24 hours. We meet every day, and then we hold the thing and play with the thing. It's a mobile game. And we're like, is this fun? Does this feel delightful? Does this feel like something I want to come back to? We share our feedback collectively. There is one person who's kind of like managing and guiding, but it does feel like a collaborative effort. And then it feels really scary in the middle because the thing, like the game, is not good.
Right.
It's bad. But then we do this every day, and things keep changing. And all of a sudden, something interesting, something fun starts to emerge
Where did the idea come from?
from us.
Just
And
random ideas.
well, each person kind of sources them from different places. So somebody might be playing a bunch of other games, and they're like, "Oh, there's like this thing that I experienced in this game that I thought was pretty delightful. That would be a good fit here." Somebody else might say, "I showed it to my, boyfriend, and I watched him play it, and he had this experience, and it came from that." We also have a community group in Discord of our players, so we share them with them, our prototypes and our early iterations, to get their feedback. It could come from anywhere. Creativity Inc. So this book that I've been reading, or I just finished for the second time, actually, it's about Pixar and their creative process. And for example, for their movies, John Lasseter basically forced the kind of, I guess, the leadership, the creative team for every movie to go on field trips. So every movie would have field trips. And so when they were making Monsters University, everybody went to a university campus. Like they went to 2 or 3 different university campuses as field trips together to go and explore the university. And then they would take pieces of that and then inject that into the movie. And they would do this for every movie. And so I guess my point is that the ideas are interesting because they can come from anywhere. They can come from a field trip. They can come from some other game that you played. They can come from your childhood. They can come from what feels like magic in the shower,
Right.
Okay. But I think the hard thing and the scary thing is trusting the process, that you just show up every day, and every day you try. And then after a bunch of trying, you actually get to a pretty good place. You need to have the pieces to some degree, but like that goes such a long way. Or, you listen to Stephen King, writing for 3 hours a day, every day, no matter what.
And so is it fair to say, let me just give you, just use an example. So like you start out with like, let's say would you start out with something like, we're going to make a Tetris game. And then before you can kind of start this process, you have to build out a 3D version of a Tetris game. So you have you have a canvas at that point, or you already have a first draft of a painting. Like you're not doing the process before you have some sort of a draft.
Yeah. We try to get to a draft as soon as possible. And to be honest, that's why our AI has been tremendous, because we can get to a rough draft lightning fast now, because you just give it to an agent, the agent produces the thing, and now we have something in our hands that we can actually play with. And I mean, some people have this magical ability to simulate in their head without needing to touch it. I think those people are very rare. And for us, getting it into our hands, being able to touch it, being able to feel it and experience it makes a huge, huge difference. So we do try to get there as soon as we can. And yeah, the vision might be like, I don't know, we want to make an experience where people feel a sense of connection and belonging by, I don't know, most recently we did this like critter collecting thing. So collecting critters in a world. And so we try to build that as quickly as we can. We're like, do I feel a sense of connection and belonging? No. What would enhance that? Oh, okay. Here's a bunch of ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's scary.
And you're literally making changes every 24 hours. So people are
in the beginning,
like, how many people are working on this?
Like, in the case of that project, there were 2 developers and 1 designer.
And it's that fast to make major changes. Are there some changes where you have an idea and it's like, cool, this idea is going to land in a week, but this idea is going to land tomorrow? Or do you try to have an idea? Do you try to do ideas that only take 24 hours to implement?
I mean, we've kind of been in a rush recently, so it has been pretty short implementation windows, but no, I mean, like there are things that are also taking a little longer, taking a few days. We do try to break it into chunks.
Weekly. Like you'll still need daily no matter what.
We were, and then as things start to get more clarity and it's like, okay, it feels good, it feels somewhat delightful. Now we're starting to space it out 2 days or 3 days, and people have more time to just kind of put in the polish and put in the, the grind. I mean, everyone's still working on it every single day, and really everybody's kind of meeting informally every single day. But to have these like play tests, in the beginning, we have it daily, and then we extend to every 2 days and then every 3 days while we're polishing.
And so would you say this process is specifically for like as we're making new games? Or
that's what we've been.
Did you have like a mature product, but are you building new games on top of it, or?
We are, yeah. We're building new games on top of it, but it's also for features, like new features. It's also even like, we're redesigning some features, and we will like build a prototype in a totally different thing, like not in our app at all, just a separate prototype,
right?
Just to get a feel. Does this feel good? Does this feel bad? Does this feel, new, or different, but like in a good way or a bad way, But I think like, whether it's us doing this or somebody writing a book or whatever, I think the thing that I observed is there's just like this really scary, ugly period.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh my God, like we're never going to figure this out. Like this is bad. And I don't know how to make it good.
Yeah.
And then like trusting the process really does work. And by the way, Creativity Inc., Ed Catmull's the author. I mean, he talks about this all the time. You take a Pixar movie, it goes through like 100 rewrites before it gets to be a Pixar movie.
Right.
And in the middle, they always have a crisis, and it's always like, this isn't going to work.
Right. Okay. And how do you know, are you putting much thought into the, so you said, we were making this critter collection game because we want to, what was it like, bring people together more?
Yeah. I mean, we have like some other objectives, but that's one of them, at the core, at least for Pocket World, and we don't talk too much about that, but we have this acronym called CAB, Creativity, Achievement, and Belonging.
Okay.
And that's what we try to, everything should be infused with creativity, achievement, and or belonging, ideally all three.
How do you know that? So when you're, because, when you're talking about this process, it's almost like I'm thinking of it as sort of like the what or the how. You're like, we have this goal for this game and it's increased belonging. And then you're getting into, okay, well, how do we solve for belonging? And that's where the creative process jumps in. We need to solve for belonging. Let's try this. Let's try that. Let's try that. How do you know that belonging is what you should be solving for? How do you, is that also iterative? Where you're like, first we're going to try belonging, and then we're going to try, you could be like, we want to make a new game that's like all about excitement. We want people to be like sweating with their palms with this game. Like, how do you know whether that's important or exciting's important or whatever?
Well, in our case, it's, we understand why people play our games called High-Res, why people play High-Res. We understand what job it does in their life, why it matters to them. So we try to solve for that because that's its intention. It helps people be creative, feel a sense of achievement, and feel a sense of belonging.
Right.
And so we know we're solving for that. But I would say that comes back to that whole bounded, unbounded conversation we were having, which is that's a boundary.
Right.
And that boundary is discovered through self-reflection, right? It's like, do I care about, in this case, let's say, offering belonging?
Right.
Or does the world want that? Which also requires reflection, I feel. Maybe a combination of reflection and experimentation. But
yeah, it's it.
Yeah.
This is making me think through my own, because like as we're talking about that, I would say that I feel incredibly strong or creative in figuring out that first piece. Which is like, which things should we go after? And what should we go at? Like, it's important to go after excitement, or it's important to go after this, or, I don't know, for my coffee business, like the insight was like, we need to we need to figure out how to reduce water in the coffee before we freeze dry it. And so, targeting that thing, because, it's a 20-step process. And I'm like, the one step that you need to focus on is this thing. Then when it came into solutions for how to do that, then I was like, okay, well, like, this is beyond me. Someone else should come and figure out the solutions, which is kind of feel like what the step you're talking about, which is a much longer step of just like trying this and trying that and trying.
Well, it's interesting. The diverge converge framework. I mean, I like looking at things in the diverge converge framework. It's this idea that there's a divergence phase and a convergence phase, and so and basically everything is like this line of divergence convergence.
Right.
And so even when you're like trying to discover, do I solve for this water problem or some other problem? That's like a divergent phase. You're like, which problem do I solve? And then you're really good at converging on the most important problem. You're like, okay, I've converged on this problem. And now you're in like solution territory. You got to diverge again. So I'd be like, oh, there's like 100 different ways to solve this thing. And you got to like suss out all the different possibilities of how to solve it. And then you got to converge again on the one good solution. And then you got to diverge again to determine how you're going to execute on that solution. Just like 100 different ways to execute on it. And then you converge again on the method that you're going to use, and everything is just diverge, converge,
Right.
And I think that's been a helpful framework for me to know like where I am on that path for anything I'm working on. So like in the solution part, it's like, are you in this divergent space where you're like, oh, there's like 100 different possible solutions and I'm in this mode of like discovering every possible solution?
Right.
Or am I in this mode where like, okay, like I have enough to choose from. Let me just converge on one. And it's kind of a similar problem.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's like probably my Achilles heel of like overly pushing for convergence as fast as possible.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people, I think we're really like solution oriented.
Right. Well, also like I found it, I mean, like from my time at Google, basically when I first joined the team I was working on, people were working on like 10 different solutions at once. And it was incredibly chaotic. There was like too much going on, like a real big lack of focus. And then to just be like, hey, we should just focus on this one thing. It was like working on promoting Google app and there were pop-ups and notifications. And what if we did that? And I was like, we should just focus on promoting Google Lens and we should do it in as simple of a way as possible. Which was sort of, I don't know, like I'm asking myself if that was like cutting out the creative process to some degree.
I don't think so. I think you were implicitly, maybe not explicitly, but doing this divergence convergence thing, which was, there were all these divergent ideas.
Right.
And you were like, well, yeah, pick one. Which one's important? And I would argue that's like, I don't know. It is upstream of everything else.
Right.
And so it's the most important decision to make.
Right.
And thus also kind of the hardest because it has so much impact. Like it's a little bit deceptive because on the one hand, it's also the like easiest because it's like, oh, I have to choose this thing that has all these cascading effects, but like, I don't really see the cascading effects for a while. But it's also the hardest if you're like really the owner of something, it's like, which house do I buy? And then you can make all the decisions on how to fix it or what to fix or whatever. But like that first step is a really heavy decision.
We only have 5 minutes left. And Edward, you wanted to ask me, I don't know if you wanted to ask me a question because you said at the beginning, really quick, do you think about monetization? Because you're running a business, obviously, when you're in the space, are you thinking about like, will this make money? Will this be profitable? Or you're just like, we're going to worry about that after we have a delightful game?
I think it depends on our goals for each thing, but right now we're really focused on delight And is it engaging? And is it something that creates a lot of value for people? That's the phase that we're in now. At some point, you're like, well, will someone pay for this value, or will they not pay for this value? But we already have a lot of stuff in our kind of universe that people pay for and creates value for them. So we're more focused on, are we giving something of value that people will return to more often and feel, as a valuable thing in their life? Yeah, I mean, I wanted to ask you about your journey, your creative journey of, you left a really lucrative, really good job in, a really hot company that a lot of people would die to work for, to go pursue ultimately what is a very creative, artistic pursuit. Why? And also, what's that journey been like?
Yeah, it's more than a 3-minute answer.
I know that is a.
Yeah, maybe this is a topic, a wider topic for the next one. I mean, I'll say two quick things.
And maybe it can be like a sneak peek.
Yeah, I'll do the sneak peek. Yeah. I mean, I think that decision was probably one of the hardest decisions I made in my life, which was like, I was a group product manager at Google. This was like the job that if you told like 16-year-old Josh, you're going to have this job, that's like what I would have wanted. And I think there was a combination of feeling this, like, I'm only using half my brain, because I was using my management skills and my, leadership skills and creating visions, but like, I wasn't really using my, I guess the forms of creativity, which is like bringing people together, creating community, making things that are funny, making things that are fun, involving lights. And so I really started to ask myself this combo of like, okay, like, what is my greater life purpose? I got to the split, and it's like, I still oscillate from this or not, which is just sort of like, before I was in this scarcity mindset, I need this job, this is the most important thing. And then switching into, and I feel like you have this attitude a lot in mine as you do, which is like, well, I can literally do anything. What would I do? If anything would work out, if there's anything that I could do, and no matter what I did, it would work out, well, then would I be doing this? And I was like, probably not. I probably would build a theme park. And then I was like, but why shouldn't I even try to do that? And then I think there was this growth edge for me that, and it was from like listening to Rick Rubin and like which, we talk about at a later time. And this book, Mastery, from Robert Greene, a couple of these like really influential books that were all about sort of like going inward, discovering self and expressing that, and realizing like, hey, like, I have these like kernels of things where, you said this together, where it's like, I'm like, I don't have any taste. Like, I was like, I have kernels of things that I'm into. I'm into dinosaurs, I'm into lights, but like, I don't have any taste, and it's not put together. And I was like, well, I want to go define that. And it's like, I looked at the rubric, or, the skills I'm supposed to learn at Google, which is like going from influencing 10 people to influencing 100 people. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, that's interesting. I kind of feel like I know what it would be to do that, because I've already done, some version of it. I have no idea what it would be like to like design a room. And so there was this element of like, okay, if I have like one life on planet Earth, like, can I go explore these other things? Which I don't know if I'm gonna regret, because as I'm, as I've been doing it, I'm like terrified every other day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like we talked about, the creative process is really terrifying, and reflection is terrifying too. Which, we should, we got to do both,
Right.
in this process.
I'll start for our next session. I want to put a thumb or footnote, whatever. I want to put a pin in what you were saying at the beginning about the definition of character. And because you were talking about that as like part of the boundary. And so I'm really curious about how that impacts the creative process.
Yeah, me too, to be honest. I've been trying to reflect on character and what are my convictions and, um, yeah, seeing what kind of boundaries it creates around my life and creative process, Um, cool. All right. Good chat. So this is our first time. We're in the arena trying things.
Yeah. If you lift us, if you like this, all right.
Yeah. Or if you hate it, also share it.
Yeah. If you want to share it and talk a lot of shit about it, that's great too.
Hate welcome.
Talk to you later.
All right. Bye.